Welcome to the GC BizCast, a collaboration of J. Whitney Bunting College of Business and Technology and the Department of Communication at Georgia College and State University. Here we discuss important topics with today's business leaders and educators. We produce weekly podcasts from our beautiful campus in Milledgeville, Georgia. We're excited that you've joined us. Our conversations should inform you and entertain you. The views expressed are the views of the individuals on the program and do not represent the views of Georgia College and State University. So, let's get started.
Hello, my name is Ryley Cole. Welcome back to another episode of the GC BizCast. Today I'm joined with a very special guest today. I'm joined by Dr. Pridmore. Dr. Pridmore is chair of the Information Systems and Computer Science Department at Georgia College and State University. She is an experienced information systems professor and program director with a demonstrated history of working in higher education and in industry. Dr. Pridmore has a passion for IS and MBA program development that supports the development of students for the 21st century. She's skilled in information systems, operations management, business intelligence, lean manufacturing, SAP products, and Cisco networking technologies. And she has served as the faculty sponsor of Women in Technology Committee Group and runs a Girls Who Code Club for 3rd to 5th graders. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Pridmore.
Well, thank you for having me.
We're very excited to dive into it. For startup, I would love to dive into a little bit about your career journey and your inspirations. So could you share with us a little bit about the journey in the tech industry and what inspired you to specialize in information systems?
Sure. So my career has been quite strange, I would say. It was certainly not a linear path. I can tell you when I was an undergrad majoring in chemical engineering and I took my first programming class, when I got done with that class, I said, thank God I will never have to work on a computer again. So that was my first introduction to computing and programming, and it was not for me. I just knew it. But once I made it further into my program and we got into some simulations where we were actually creating and I could see the benefit and the use of it, then I decided that I liked technology. So of all things, I ended up becoming a controls engineer where I programmed, and I got my first job in a pulp and paper company where I programmed for large scale pieces of equipment. So I had 2 13-story recovery boilers. I had evaporator train distillation columns, a lime kiln, a lot of really things that I know probably don't sound that much fun, but I had a really good time working on it. And it was a great place to learn. And once I started working after a couple of years, I decided to get my MBA, and the company that I was working for rolled out an SAP system. And when we rolled it out, we couldn't find the data. Nobody knew where anything was. We went through what most companies go through, the growing pains after you implement a very large system like that causes quite a bit of cultural change and shifts in the way that processes have been done. And so the company I worked for decided to roll out Six Sigma, and I got picked to be one of the Six Sigma trainees to go in as a master black belt for Six Sigma. And I said yes, which I'm not really sure why I said yes at this point, because my boss told me not to. He actually said, no, don't do that. You already have the engineering experience. You've got your MBA. You've now come over to the business side of things as an analyst. So stay here as an analyst. Don't do the Six Sigma. And I got talked into staying in the Six Sigma, and I ended up in that path. And once I got into that, I realized that I love data and I love problem solving and I love analysis. And I got very excited by the thought of problem solving at a larger scale than just the back end of the process where I worked. So from that, I decided to get a PhD in information technology and innovation because I really just fell in love with what you can do with the technology and the problems that it solves and where it can take you to that next level. So that's, again, kind of a strange way of how I got here, but that's how I got here.
Very cool. I totally agree. I love seeing the benefits of the technology and what can come out of it. Would you mind elaborating a little bit on the Six Sigma and lean operations experience that you had for any of our guests that don't know what that is?
Yeah, so Six Sigma is, 99.999% defect free is the whole point of Six Sigma. So with Six Sigma, what we were looking at is trying to understand where the defects lie in our process and where the defects lie in our system. So we knew that the data was there, we knew the data was being tracked, but we couldn't figure out what was going on. And just for an example, and I know everyone's probably thinking like process manufacturing, but where I got into it was on the more of the business side of things. So we lost material at our ports. We were shipping internationally and material went to the ports and the material kind of disappeared. And we had contracts with our customers that said the material is supposed to be here within 4 weeks of when it ships. And they were saying, well, it's getting to us in 6 weeks. And so that actually fell out of the agreed contract, right? So our company was getting hit with a lot of penalties and fines because we weren't meeting what the contract was. And it was kind of back and forth between the customers saying that this was happening and our people saying, no, 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 the product's there, it's getting shipped. They know that we rolled out this new system. They're telling us something that's not true. And it was just a lot of frustration on both sides. And so I spent 6 months going through the certification process with this project of trying to find the data, trying to map the data, trying to understand what the actual process was and where the product was going. And as it turned out, after 6 months, what I realized is that the system had just been programmed incorrectly. I mean, of all the seriously, of all the anticlimactic you could come up with, right? All that had happened is whoever set it up wasn't a user expert. They didn't know what they were doing, and they actually thought they were helping us out by increasing the amount of time. So instead of 1 day to port, they programmed it for 2 days to port. Instead of 2 weeks across the ocean, they programmed it for like 3 weeks across they thought they were helping us out, but what was going on was the system was doing what the system was told. And that was causing our shipments to get there at 6 weeks instead of 4 weeks. And it took 6 months to prove this and to figure out where the disconnect lie. And I ended up finding like $1.8 million of material that had been lost at the ports. So from that, which I guess leads into my dissertation was all on user-centered design. So going through these different experiences that I had as a controls engineer, working with the operators and seeing their screens, which were full of all kinds of messy, just alarms and things flashing. And I can even remember going into the control room for, the first few weeks that I worked there, looking around and the alarms and the noise and the lights. And I'm going, why is all this happening? Something bad must be going on. They're like, oh, no, it's fine. That happens. Like, well, then how do you know something's really a problem, right? And then going into the other side and seeing the business side of things. And then again, looking at this and going, you didn't spend enough time with the users. You didn't really understand the process. You didn't get everybody in a room and put together a really good business map to really understand how the system should have been programmed. And that led me into my dissertation, which was all on situational awareness and decision-making and intelligent interface design. So, yes.
Very cool. That's awesome. There's always, being such an expert in such a male-dominated field, I understand that you are a sponsor for the Women in Technology Club at Georgia College, as well as you run a Girls Who Code Club for 3rd to 5th graders as well. And what are some of those challenges that you faced or challenges for opportunities with women face during their time chasing a career in information technologies or technology services?
So I can say probably very naively, when I got into engineering or when I got into manufacturing or when I got into the corporate world and IT, I didn't really know that it was male dominated. I was never raised thinking that there was such a thing. I really wasn't. And I know that sounds strange, but my father had two daughters and I was the youngest. So I guess you could say I was kind of his son. And my father never talked about the differences in gender. He always was right there doing everything that my mom did. And I saw between the two of them, and they were a small business, between their marriage and their business, they did everything together. And honestly, I did not know that sexism existed. I did not know that there were fields where I would be looked down upon because I was a female.
That's really awesome, though. That's great.
Well, and I would say that it was very naive too, though, because when I got into the engineering program at Auburn, I had a couple of professors that really came down on me and specifically said, because you're a girl. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? Because I'm a girl, right? That was really my first experience. And working at the paper mill, I was one of about 10 women and like 450 men. It was a very humbling experience to be like the only female in a room. And for me, where my passion comes from with the Women in Technology group and also with the Girls Who Code is to help these young girls find their way, find their passion, and also find their people, find their network. Because I was lucky enough when I got hired at the paper mill to be hired with several other, and I said of the 10, there was probably 4 of us that got hired at the same exact time, females. And we found each other and we were each other's support. And when things were happening that we were going, is this normal? Is this okay? Is this stuff that we have to deal with? Or how do we navigate this? How do we get through some of these power structures and dynamics that were a bit surprising to us, to be honest, at that point? Finding those people and finding that network is why I'm here today. And that's not to say that there weren't very supportive men, because there were a couple of men that I still would not be here if it wasn't for them taking me under their wing and helping me learn and figure out how to push back, where to push back. It's okay to say no. It's okay that I don't know everything, right? Like that really hardcore imposter syndrome that hit in as a 22-year-old working in a paper mill surrounded by men that I felt like knew everything and I didn't know anything. So my passion for the women and for the girls, it's to help them come along, to help them see that there are other people like them and to help them find that network. So when things get tough, they don't drop out, right?
Absolutely. I'm sure it helps so much to see familiar faces or people that are similar to you and able to overcome those challenges together, people to bounce ideas off of and feel things out.
If you look at the data, about 24% of the tech world is made up of women. And when you go higher up in the ranks or when you start cutting away and looking at different races, you get to more like a 3% number, which is it's just really sad. And, I have people say things to me like, oh, well, don't you think women just opt out because they don't want to? And no, we don't. Women don't opt out because after all these years of training, after deciding to go into a field that they have passion for, they don't opt out because they want to. They opt out because they hit a wall. They feel like they can't go any further, right? Absolutely. And so finding that network is what keeps you in there and keeps you going, even on those days where you feel like I'm never going to be able to make it any further.
Definitely. That's very important, especially with a long career journey ahead of everyone. In your opinion, how do you think educational institutions can play a role in bridging the gender gap in technology?
So, for one, the programs that we do with having these women groups like the Women in Tech, we also at Georgia College, they do something very special. We actually take girls to the Grace Hopper conference and celebration, and we do that to try to really help them find their way. So we have some very special programs at Georgia College that not a lot of other campuses have. But just from having like a Women in Tech group, from having guest speakers that come in to trying to find good industry guest speakers that are women to come in and to build that network and to help the students figure out their way and their path. I think that's really the role that we can play for the girls and for the community, and bringing together almost like a bridge between the industry, the students, academics, right? I think that's the role that we play. It's a hard thing, and honestly, there are times that I feel bad for the boys. I mean, I do, because we talk so much about the girls, about what we're going to do for the girls and how we're going to, and I do feel at times like, oh goodness, the boys must think that we don't care about them. And it's not that. It's trying to help them figure out how to move forward. And even in the Women in Tech group, I mean, at Georgia College, we actually had a boy serve on the e-board a couple of years ago. So we're not anti-male, but we're just trying to make sure the girls know that this is a network for them to get started and to move forward in their careers.
Absolutely. That's very awesome. I have many classmates that are part of the Women in Technology Club, and they all speak so highly about it, about the opportunities that present it. I know many people that went to Grace Hopper and had just such a fantastic experience throughout that week. So it is really inspiring to see you take control and really be such an advocate for the women in technology. So I want to go a little bit more into some of the skills, specifically SAP. And so I know you have significant involvement with SAP. Would you be able to elaborate on how SAP technologies are influencing the current landscape of business and technology?
Yes, absolutely. So SAP and enterprise systems, which in the past, when you would think about SAP, you'd always think about manufacturing, which is where I got started with it. But in the world that we live in now, with IoT everywhere, with mobile apps, with everything being tracked, and enterprise is anything that you can draw a box around. And really what SAP is trying to do and where they're going is they're trying to make enterprises intelligent, whatever that enterprise happens to be, right? So you could go as looking at how the soccer team in Germany trains, right? To actually some of the examples that we saw this past summer at the SAP Customer Experience Center was fashion, where they were doing smart mirrors where you could hold up different pieces of clothing from the store, and the mirror would tell you where the pieces were that would go with it, right? Or they had an IoT fragrance designer system set up, right? So when you think about SAP now, you think about the intelligent enterprise, what drives that? And it's all driven by the different technologies that we have. With the S/4HANA system that they're using, it's in-memory computing database, which means that the systems can run an entire platform with the end user doing analytics right in with the platform itself versus having to cache out and do their processing on a different level. Also, all the IoT devices that we have, the mobile app devices that we have, AI, I mean, AI is everywhere, right? Everyone's trying to figure out how to use AI, how to incorporate it, where it can be used. And at the end of all of that is the analytics. How do you make very smart, real-time, intelligent decisions? And that's what SAP is doing. And that's where it's heading, trying to make companies intelligent and trying to give decision makers the information that they need when they need it.
That's really cool. It's crazy to see the AI taking over so fast in such a broad industry where, like you said, it can be anywhere from fashion to it can touch on so many different areas.
And it can be a bit scary.
Definitely.
Because at one point in time, do they realize they don't need us anymore, right? But it is coming from every direction in every industry in so many ways. And it's something that we have to take serious and figure out what to do with it, how to do with it, and how we can leverage that for our good.
Absolutely. And I can see a lot of advancements coming in the near future. And when it comes to business and technology, especially related together. So kind of moving forward with the AI discussion, I understand that you're working on an AI certificate program. What unique aspects or approaches are you integrating to ensure that it stands out and effectively prepares students for the evolving tech industry?
So for AI, what we're working on right now is a certificate that is, I'm going to say, mostly focused on the CSDS side of things, computer science and data science side of. So our department is information systems and computer science. And in the computer science side, they are very much driven in the development in the back end, the algorithms, the machine learning side of it. How do these things actually become intelligent in a good way, right? Because that's one of the things that we have to really make sure that we're doing when we create the AI is that it is ethical, that it is representative, that it is doing what we say it's going to do without biasness, right? Absolutely. And that's not an easy task, right? So what we're doing right now, what we're in the process of developing right now is a certificate for the back end. We are working towards more of the applied because I know what we're doing on that back end is going to be very targeted for our very technical students that they want to go and develop the AI systems, right? They want to go in and develop the machine learning. They want to go in and be the AI engineer. So that's where we are right this second. We're going to be looking at next into more of the applied world. We have some really cool things that are being redesigned right now in business communications, also in the MIS world, where we're trying to harness the power of AI to make us better at what we do. So how do we bring in the AI technology and use it as a tool and learn the strategies and the ability to get it to help us be more creative and to help us develop our critical thinking and problem solving skills, right? So that we're trying to figure out exactly what to do with it, whether that should be a certificate or whether it should be more the micro credentialing. We haven't quite figured that part out yet because we want to make sure that as many students can get access to these kinds of tools of how to learn them and how to work with them, because I can tell you in probably the next 5 years, the biggest jobs you're going to be hearing about are going to be AI centered, whether it's AI prompting or the prompting engineer or generative programming or semantics or whatever words you can center around it. They are going to be around AI. You can't go to any industry conference right now. You can't look at any of the big companies and what they're doing without seeing how AI is coming through. So we want to make sure on more of the business side of things with the users that we're able to get as many people skilled in these areas and how to leverage these technologies.
It's so cool to see how the curriculum is shifting with the current trends within the technology world. That's
We're
really
trying.
Awesome. No, it is really cool to see. Going back to what you said earlier about you were touched a little bit on the ethics portion about making sure that it's non-biased and doing what you actually are wanting it to do. So in your opinion, how important is the role of ethics in AI in technology education, and how is your department going to be able to handle that with these new programs?
Well, we'll have to make sure that ethics is a key piece wherever AI is being used, whether it's, plagiarism with copying and pasting, right? Whether it is in the development of systems too, because you hear the stories about AI programs that have been developed that are supposed to recognize or pick up faces and they can't see people of color, right? Or if you talk about biasness where things were built around with with a male, I don't want to say persona, but like the male typical type. So I don't know, I'm kind of rambling right now, but it makes me think about cars. Women are more likely to get hurt in a car wreck than a man is because the safety features of a car were built for a man's body. And so when you actually start peeling back those layers, and I know that that's not technology at all, but a lot of what we live with today has been designed around that male stereotypical architect, right? And so women get left out, or people of color get left out, or whatever lens you want to look at, there's a lot you can look at it being left out. So we have to make sure that we are learning from those past mistakes. We have to make sure that if we're doing face recognition, that it is to fit all colors, right? If we are doing things that are going to be, I don't know, healthcare based, or what would be another good, I think about healthcare and privacy, right? We're doing all the telemedicine now, and you can have the chat bots that you can put in your symptoms or put in what you're feeling or how things are. And the chat bot can go and find things and ask you questions and then come up for you intelligently, right? Without having to quote unquote see a doctor at that point. But what if that information gets taken? What if it gets sold? What if there's so many levels of what we have to consider, from privacy, security, protection of the individual, as well as the biases and what's being built and designed. So I think with whatever we do, wherever we're including it, we have to make sure that the ethics part of it, the regulations, the controls, just being aware of those kinds of biases, those kind of unconscious biasness that I would say have been built into so many things in our world, to make sure that we're trying to address that as we go.
Definitely. I think it's going to be a very interesting topic moving forward as the AI progresses. And like you said, the careers are going to be shifting into a lot of more AI based jobs. And I think it'll be very interesting to see how it shifts into the ethics portion of it, because I feel like there has been ethics in technology in the past has been always evolving, and
right.
It always is slightly behind current trends, I feel like. And I think it is very important that they grow together as AI moves into these next stages of its life.
Oh, absolutely. And you think about just the world of cybersecurity, right? Like People never, the internet and the technology that we have wasn't developed thinking that people were going to do bad things with it, right? So cybersecurity and those rules and regulations and laws, and even just understanding all the bad that could be done, has always lagged. And I feel like it's the same way with the ethics. And I feel like that's probably going to be one of the next big shifts once more and more of this comes out, is having to have rules and regulations the same way that we do with cybersecurity, with around the AI and how we're producing it and using it.
I think that'll be very important moving forward into the next steps. On a more broad scale, given your expertise, how do you foresee AI reshaping business practices and even societal norms over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think it's going to start playing a part in almost everything that we do and how we do it. If you think about, for just one example is Bank of America. Bank of America created their chat box, their online automated chat box. And when they created it, it was actually pre-COVID. And they had about 9,000 users. And all 9,000 of those users were actually employees of the company. So people outside, on the outside world, didn't embrace it and didn't use it. And then COVID came. And now all of a sudden, they went from 9,000 users to 2.5 million users within a couple of months of when the world shut down, right? And so now we're all starting to embrace these technologies, where a few years ago, nobody really trusted it or wanted to use it or said that it wasn't worthwhile. But again, as every few months change, the technology gets better and it gets better and it gets better. So where before, when you'd have the chat box come up and you would think, oh, it's going to ask me a couple of really dumb questions and then I'm just going to have to wait for somebody anyways, please just give me the representative now. Now we're much more inclined of, oh, we can type things in and it's going to be able to be intelligent for us and help us, right? And I know that's one very small example, but I think that moving forward, pretty much everything that we do, every job is going to have some aspect of AI to it in some form or fashion, whether it's the chat GPT and trying to help write a persuasive argument, or whether it is programming, or whether it is, I think about like RPA, robotic process automation, and SAP conversational AI and SAP Build with their AI programming, to where it puts the programming in the hands of the users and it makes everybody able to do things that only a select few used to do. So you think about the power, the user knows what the user needs, right? And that's always kind of been the disconnect between the person that's able to do the technology and the person that they're doing it for. They don't fully understand the problem, or they come in and say, oh, I know what you need and I'm going to do this for you, without fully understanding it from the user. So the way technology is changing, it's going to really empower those users to be able to do things for themselves, or to think of solutions and problem solve that they had never thought of before. And I've never been one of those people. And I say never been one of those people because I went through an SAP startup. And when SAP came to the mill that I was at, we were told, oh, it's going to be lights out processing. We're not going to need customer service anymore. We're going to be able to just like shut down and turn off that entire system or building, because a customer is going to be able to call in and place their order and everything's going to work magically. And that is never the case. You bring in more technology, what I have seen is that people don't go away. They just go to different areas or for different things. So I don't think that it's going to remove people, but I think it's going to shift and change jobs. So there's probably going to be a good bit of discomfort. There's probably going to be resistance and some cultural shifts that have to happen. But it's always so funny to see where the technology takes root and takes place, because once they get used to it and adjust it, they don't want to go without it. Right. And I do worry about the downside of it too, because I do feel like some of the stuff is so smart, it makes us not so smart. I think about my smartphone. I used to be able to know everybody's phone numbers and now I don't. I used to be able to drive and know directions. Now I've got my GPS, and I can tell you with my kids growing up, and they're 14 and 11 now, there are times that I take away the technology. I'm like, you have to be able to operate on your own. You have to think your way through whatever it is, right? And you have to know the phone numbers, and you have to. So I think we have to just make sure that we're keeping in check and in line, that we're not letting it do too much for us, right?
Absolutely.
but it's going to change, and we're going to have to be able to adapt, and we're going to have to figure out where those blind spots are to make sure that we are, not just losing everything.
Absolutely. I think you said it earlier, but you said using it as a resource, use it to help us enhance our creativity or enhance our critical thinking or problem solving skills. I think it is very important to utilize it as a resource and, like you said, not just let it do all of the thinking for us. We need
Correct.
to be able to grow our own mind and our own capabilities by utilizing it, not necessarily just using it to dismiss jobs or dismiss work that
Not
we don't
using
want.
it just to get an answer, using it to help us make sure we're getting the right answers.
Definitely. How do you envision the future of technology education evolving, particularly with the importance of AI and machine learning? So within the education of technology, how do you see that growing and increasing?
I think we have to make sure that we're embedding this as much as we can throughout every program and throughout all majors, because it doesn't matter so much if they're a business major or if they are a public administration person or an education major or, health sciences. I feel like what we're talking about in the technology that we're using, it needs to go out to where everybody can learn it and assist with it. Because we all have to rise and do better and come at the same time, right? So I feel like it's got to be something that people, and I know people are very scared of it, or some people are very scared of it right now, right? I mean, they are, and not saying that there's not reason to be, because there is always a downside. It's not always rosy. But at the same point in time, we have to figure out how to harness it, like what you were talking about, and using it for the good and for all people, because that's the only way that we're going to ever get to the point where everybody is being able to be elevated together.
Yes. Both my parents are educators, one in middle school and one teaches high school, and they're both terrified of their students using it. So I always think it's very interesting to hear, like you are doing with the AI certificate program, and really diving headfirst into it to making sure it's all on board and growing at the same pace. That's really cool, because I know my parents are one of those, or a group of those people that are scared and want to run from it for as long as they can.
Well, anything new is scary, and anything
Absolutely.
new. And I mean, we can go through all kinds of crazy movies, right? Where like the Terminator or whatever. I mean, I know that I'm old, that dates me, that's the 80s, but we can think back to these movies and go, oh, wow, is that really possible? Or, at what point are they going to get so smart that they decide that they don't need us at all, right? And I know that probably sounds crazy, but there is also some truth to that, right? Like, we want to make sure that we are still the ones being subjective and making the decisions and not just being led by the technology.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more. So moving away from the artificial intelligence subject, I would love to ask a little bit of advice for aspiring tech professionals. So what advice would you give to young professionals who are aspiring to build a career in technology?
So I think the biggest thing is to create and play is what I would have to say on that. Even if you come through and get a software engineering degree or a computer science degree or an MIS degree, we only have so much time with you, right? What really makes you stand out and what really helps you is if you do those extra things and you are willing to go the extra mile, right? So if you look at programs, you look at system throughout the thing, there's going to be database, there's going to be networking, there's going to be cybersecurity. What is going to make you stand out over somebody else graduating, right? What are those extra things that you can do that makes you you and makes you special? And find those things and really lean into that. It could be traveling abroad. It could be getting a certification. It could be starting your own website or even your own blog that highlights the things that you're doing, or being very active on LinkedIn and making sure that as you do these things, people are seeing that. Because what companies want these days, they don't just want somebody who has a degree and a diploma. They want somebody who's all in and loves this area and what they're doing, so they can see them grow and they can see the benefit that they're going to get from them. So that also, network, get outside of your comfort zone. And I am truly a very naturally introverted and shy person. And when I was 22, if you had told me I had to go to a networking event and go meet people, I would have been like, nope, not doing that. Now on this end, I realize how silly and short-sighted that was, because what's the worst thing that's going to happen if I try to talk to someone and they turn around and walk away? Okay, there's another person over there, right? So, you've got to get out of your comfort zone. You've got to network. You've got to be able to carry on conversations, look people in the eyes, and be able to communicate and figure out how to relate with each other, because the tech skills are important, but the relationships are what gets you the jobs. It's going to be what gets you to get promoted and go forward. And it's also going to give you the ability to see past yourself and to learn more perspectives about how other people think. So as the technology world is great, highly endorse MIS and computer science as a major, you have to see past that, and you have to see about all the extra things that you can do and what you bring to the table. And you have to put yourself out there to be able to help yourself grow and progress in life. And don't work remote, at least not for your first job. I know everybody wants to work remote, and I totally understand that. But for your first job, at the very least, be in a company where you go in at least a handful of days a week, because you're never going to learn from yourself sitting alone in your apartment. You need to be around people, and you need to be able to learn from them and figure out how the dynamics work in the organization.
Absolutely. I feel like that is some great advice. Would you be able to elaborate a little bit more on maybe some of the certificates that you think are growing in the tech world, or some that are very beneficial that students could pursue?
So it all depends on your focus and what you want to do. So with SAP, the big one would be the TS 410 certification. And we are at Georgia College. We just got our newly approved SAP Student Award Program. So that's going to roll out spring semester. So I'm excited about bringing back that here to Georgia College. And what that means is that we have 3 courses that have at least 30% SAP material in them. So by the time you get done with that, it actually really sets you up well to be able to sit for the TS 410 certification if you so chose to do that. Which, if you want to go into the SAP world, if you want to go into consulting, that's the, entry level certification that you need to get started down that path. Okay. Now, if you want to go to a Home Depot or a Coca-Cola, you don't necessarily need the TS 410, but it still gives you a good broad overview of all of SAP, and that helps you kind of pick your niche of where you want to go. But that's a very impressive starting certification for somebody in that side of things. If you're more on the networking and cybersecurity, there's Networking Plus, there's CompTIA, there's Security Plus. Those are all very basic entry levels. Once you get past that, then it's going to be the Cisco CCNA or Cisco Cyber Ops for cybersecurity and for networking on that side. That's probably not going to come right out of school, but that would be something that I would kind of gear yourself towards. There's also a lot of just really cool things that you can do on your own that are a little bit smaller, like Splunk. If you could go through and do like one of the online tools on Splunk, just to kind of get familiar with that, because that's a lot of dashboarding in cybersecurity, which is a skill that a lot of companies are looking for per se. But on the cybersecurity side too, once you get further down the road, it would be probably the CISM or the CISSP. And I know I'm just throwing out a lot of letters right now, so I apologize. But it all depends on the world of what you're trying to get into and where you want to go. And one of our newer concentrations that we are in the process of getting approval for is project management and consulting. And in that one, that is where we're looking to embed a Scrum certification. So for Agile project management, to help those students really find their path. If per se, they don't so much want to go into analytics, or they don't want to go into networking and cybersecurity as the project manager and consultant, that would put you more as a general technologist project manager in that world. But the Scrum allows you to understand the methodologies to make a project successful.
Very cool. And kind of want to just wrap this up as we approach our time here. And I want to ask a few questions as the new department chair. What are some of the key goals for the department, and how do you plan to achieve them?
Well, we've been talking about a lot of them so far. So right now we are doing a wide review of our programs, And so in the MIS side, we have come up with 3 new concentrations. Well, I shouldn't say new. We're redesigning the concentrations we have just to make them a little bit more 2023. So the data analytics is going to be enterprise and analytics, and that's going to have the SAP student award program embedded into it. We'll have the networking and security management, and that's going to have the advanced networking class. We are redesigning that to focus on cloud and cloud security. And then the security, sorry, my phone's ringing. The security one, we're taking that, well, we're actually creating a whole new class that's going to be threat, vulnerability, risk analysis, really focused on those policy managements, because a lot of what the industry is the policy, the management of it, and who is going to be able to handle that and do that and fill those roles. Because currently, right now in the state of Georgia, there's 55,000 unfilled jobs in cybersecurity, and a large percentage of those are the analyst. So that's where we're heading with that track. And then the third one has been web development, but we are taking that to where it's going to be the project management and consultant. So that's where we're heading around that concentration. We are updating some of our other courses where we are embedding the AI tools into those. So we are leaning into full stack development with AI. With our business communications class, we are really very much going into prompting with AI to help with better strategic communications. And on the computer science and data science, we are doing the AI certificate. And we are starting to look a little bit more at trying to make the path for someone who wants the computer science or data science degree a little bit less prescriptive, because it is very prescriptive right now. And we are also looking into or starting to develop a master's in applied computer science or AI. So we're looking to see where we can grow that program to possibly bring in with the Masters of Applied. It's not going to be so much theory driven. So it wouldn't necessarily have to be someone with a computer science or computer engineering undergrad. It could be someone maybe in education or music that goes, oh, I really have a love and passion for technology. I just didn't think about that as a major because I loved music. Well, I can go into the applied route and learn how to be the RPA programmer, or learn how to be the SAP conversational AI programmer, right? Like whatever that happens to be for them. So I really hope between those master programs, between the Masters of MIS and what we're trying to do with computer science, we can find some synergies to pull across between the aisles, because with the applied, I think we could all play together a little bit more than what we currently do.
That's awesome. It sounds like you have a lot of great goals coming up, and I'm very excited to see the development of a lot of these programs and these ideas as they formulate throughout the years coming.
Well, thank you. So am I.
Unfortunately, we are out of time here today. I was just hoping maybe you could leave us with something that you've learned in your career that you wish you had known when you started.
So the 3 things that always stand out to me is I've said yes a lot. I pretty much have always said yes. And that has brought me some really great outcomes. And I think that saying yes is important and it shows enthusiasm. But if you constantly say yes, then that's a problem. And it's okay to say no. And to be able to discern between when this is a great opportunity to say yes, and then where, no, I can't do that because that's just one too many things, right?
Absolutely.
I wish I could have learned that earlier.
Go ahead.
I would say the other thing to me that was almost debilitating when I started working is I thought I was supposed to know everything. I really did. I thought I was supposed to. And when I started working at the paper mill, I heard almost every day for 6 months, you're only here because you're a female. You only got the job because you're a woman and we had to hire you, right? And it wasn't from the person who hired me. It was from other people, okay? And it really got to me. And I can remember like crying and thinking, gosh, I'm just not good, right? Like I'm only here because I'm a woman. I don't have anything to offer. And it took me about 6 months to gain the courage to say, no, I'm here because I had the qualifications to
Absolutely.
Maybe it helped that I was a female. Maybe they said we've got 440 men. We need to have at least one female. But I can tell you of all the search committees that I have served on for positions, no one has ever said hire the girl or hire the person of color. That we've always looked for the persons with the best credentials. And
Absolutely.
if it happened to be an underrepresented class, it was almost like a bonus, right?
Definitely.
So I wish that I had known that earlier, that it's okay that I didn't know anything, and me not knowing everything was not because I was a woman. It was just because I was a human, because no
Yes.
human knows everything, right?
Definitely.
Okay to say I don't know. It's okay to say I'm going to find out.
That's a very comforting feeling as I move into searching for my career path, and knowing that we're not alone in that feeling. Definitely.
It's not. And, every person gets hired because whoever hires you sees value in you and sees potential in you. And that's why you get hired. And then that's another thing that I try to tell the girls is don't let people say you got the job because you're a girl. You got the job because you earned it with your credentials and they saw promise in you. Now, what you do with that promise is up to you once you get hired.
I think that's a great piece of advice to leave us with. Thank you so much, Dr. Pridmore, for joining us on this episode. It was great to learn more about you, the future goals of the programs and as new department chair, and learning just a little bit more about everything you have to offer.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was great talking with you.